Okay, we have another one we want to graph. This time we have y equals x squared minus 5. We want to find this information that's given. So, first of all, we want to find the vertex. Your vertex is going to be negative b over 2a. Now, if you look at this one, we notice that there is an x term that's missing there. So if there's no x term in there, that means that the b is actually going to be 0 in this case. So if you want to do negative b over 2a, that means that you're going to do negative times 0 over 2 times 1. You get 0 for your answer, so that would be the x coordinate. For the y coordinate, you want to make sure you put 0 back into this one in place of the x, and you get 0 squared minus 5, and you get negative 5 as a result. So the vertex here is going to be 0 and negative 5. Now what I noticed about that is 0, negative 5, that's also going to be our y-intercept. That's 0, negative 5 as well, because the x-coordinate happens to be 0. I can also answer the axis of symmetry. That's x equals, and you're just going to put the x-coordinate of your vertex, which in this case is going to be 0. So we got all that information at once, just from finding the vertex. The last thing we need to find is we want to find the x intercept. Now x intercept is where you put in a 0 for y. So if we do that, we get 0 equals x squared minus 5. Now that can't be factored. That's not going to be a difference of squares because 5 is not a perfect square. However, you could do the square rooting property on that. So what you do is you bring the 5 over and you get 5 equals x squared. And then if you do the square root of both sides, you're going to get plus or minus the square root of 5. So I get plus or minus square root of 5 is going to go in here for the x-intercept. So now that I have all that complete, I'm ready now to draw the graph. So the square root of 5, if you put that in a calculator, that's 2.25. So I'm going to write that here. So this is the equivalent of plus or minus 2.25. If I want to put that on the x-axis here, what I do is I'm just going to estimate it. So 2.25 would be negative, would be there. The positive one would be here. And then it goes through 0, negative 5. That's going to be my vertex. And that's also going to be my y-intercept. I have the 3 points here. These 3 points are actually going to be enough to know that my graph is going to come down through here. And then it's going to come out through the other one. So here's all the information that I found. When you write your answer, you can leave it in the square root form instead of the decimal. The decimal is just for our graphing purposes. So all the information we found initially, and here is our completed graph. Suppose it asks us to find the domain of this one. Okay, now domain and range we're going to do for this. So domain, first of all, is the x value that's being used here. Now if you look back at the original equation, we don't have any square roots, we don't have any division by 0 happening, so because of that, that tells us that our domain could actually be all real numbers from negative infinity to positive infinity. What about the range? Okay, the range is talking about the y values that the graph is using. So domain, it's using all the x's in both directions. There's no restrictions on this. So because of that, we're using all of our values. Now the range, that's going to have to be from the lowest y value to the highest y value. The lowest y value that this graph uses is going to be negative 5, and it's going to start down here, and it's going to go all the way up. So it's going to go from negative 5 to positive infinity. Remember when you write interval notation, your lowest number must come first. So again, your range is negative 5 is the lowest number. We're including that as a bracket because it does go through that point. That's included on the graph. And it'll go all the way up to infinity.